Chapter 12. Liking life on my own account no better, I form a great resolution. In due time, Mr. Micawber's petition was ripe for hearing, and that gentleman was ordered to be discharged under the Act, to my great joy. His creditors were not implacable, and Mrs. Micawber informed me that even the revengeful bootmaker had declared in open court that he bore him no malice, but that when money was owing to him, he liked to be paid. He said he thought it was human nature. Mr. Micawber returned to the King's Bench when his case was over, as some fees were to be settled and some formalities observed before he could be actually released. The club received him with transport and held a harmonic meeting that evening in his honour, while Mrs. Micawber and I had a lamb's fry in private, surrounded by the sleeping family. "On such an occasion I will give you, Master Copperfield," said Mrs. Micawber, in a little more flip, for we had been having some already, the memory of my papa and mamma. "Are they dead, ma'am?" I inquired. "My mamma departed this life," said Mrs. Micawber, "before Mr. Micawber's difficulties commenced, or at least before they became pressing. My papa lived to bail Mr. Micawber several times, and then expired, regretted by a numerous circle." Mrs. Micawber shook her head and dropped a pious tear upon the twin who happened to be in hand. As I could hardly hope for a more favourable opportunity of putting a question in which I had a near interest, I said to Mrs. Micawber, "May I ask, ma'am, what you and Mr. Micawber intend to do now that Mr. Micawber is out of his difficulties and at liberty? Have you settled yet?" "My family," said Mrs. Micawber, who always said those two words with an air, though I never could discover who came under the denomination, "my family are of opinion that Mr. Micawber should quit London and exert his talents in the country. Mr. Micawber is a man of great talent, Master Copperfield." I said I was sure of that. "Of great talent," repeated Mrs. Micawber. "My family are of opinion that, with a little interest, something might be done for a man of his ability in the custom house. The influence of my family being local, it is their wish that Mr. Micawber should go down to Plymouth. They think it indispensable that he should be upon the spot." "That he may be ready?" I suggested. "Exactly," returned Mrs. Micawber, "that he may be ready in case of anything turning up." "And do you go too, ma'am?" The events of the day, in combination with the twins, if not with the flip, had made Mrs. Micawber hysterical, and she shed tears as she replied, "I never will desert Mr. Micawber. Mr. Micawber may have concealed his difficulties from me in the first instance, but his sanguine temper may have led him to expect that he would overcome them. The pearl necklace and bracelets which I inherited from mamma have been disposed of for less than half their value, and the set of coral, which was the wedding gift of my papa, had been actually thrown away for nothing. But I will never desert Mr. Micawber, no," cried Mrs. Micawber, more affected than before. "I never will do it. It's of no use asking me." I felt quite uncomfortable, as if Mrs. Micawber supposed I had asked her to do anything of the sort, and sat looking at her in alarm. "Mr. Micawber has been provident. I do not deny that he has kept me in the dark as to his resources and his abilities both," she went on, looking at the wall, "but I never will desert Mr. Micawber." Mrs. Micawber having now raised her voice into a perfect scream, I was so frightened that I ran off to the club-room and disturbed Mr. Micawber in the act of presiding at a long table and leading the chorus of "Gee up Dobbin, gee ho Dobbin, gee up Dobbin, gee up and gee ho ho," with the tidings that Mrs. Micawber was in an alarming state, upon which he immediately burst into tears and came away with me, with his waistcoat full of the heads and tails of shrimps of which he had been partaking. "Emma, my angel," cried Mr. Micawber, running into the room, "what is the matter?" "I never will desert you, Micawber," she exclaimed. "My life," said Mr. Micawber, taking her in his arms. "I am perfectly aware of it. He is the parent of my children. He is the father of my twins. He is the husband of my affections," cried Mrs. Micawber, struggling, "and I never will desert." Consequently, Mr. Micawber was soon so overcome that he mingled his tears with hers and mine, until he begged me to do him the favour of taking a chair on the staircase while he got her into bed. I would have taken my leave for the night, but he would not hear of my doing that until the stranger's bell should ring. So I sat at the staircase window until he came out with another chair and joined me. "How is Mrs. Micawber now, sir?" I said, and afterwards shed tears. I was greatly touched and disappointed too, for I had expected we should be quite gay on this happy and long looked for occasion, much that when the bell rang and Mr. Micawber parted from me there with a blessing, I felt quite afraid to leave him by myself away from London, and that a parting between us was near at hand. I was in my walk home that night, and in the sleepless hours which followed when I lay in bed, I had grown to be so accustomed to the Micawbers, and had been so intimate with them in their distresses, and was so utterly friendless without them, that the prospect of being thrown upon some new shift for a lodging, and going once more among unknown people, was like being that moment turned adrift into my present life, with such a knowledge of it ready-made as experience had given me. All the sensitive feelings it wounded so cruelly, all the shame and misery it kept alive within my breast, became more poignant as I thought of this, and I determined that the life was unendurable, that there was no hope of escape from it, unless the escape was my own act, I knew quite well. I rarely heard from Miss Murdstone, and never from Mr. Murdstone, but 2 or 3 parcels of made or mended clothes had came up for me, consigned to Mr. Quinion, and in each there was a scrap of paper to the effect of that J.M. Trusted, D.C., was applying himself to business and devoting himself wholly to his duties, not the least hint of my ever being anything else than the common drudge into which I was fast settling down. The very next day showed me, while my mind was in the first agitation of what it had conceived, that Mrs. Micawber had not spoken of their going away without warrant. They took a lodging in the house where I lived for a week, at the expiration of which time they were to start consent, as he had every reason to think, for I said nothing, though my resolution was now taken. I passed my evenings with Mr. and Mrs. Applesauce and a pudding. I had bought a spotted wooden horse overnight as a parting gift to little Wilkins Micawber, that was the boy, and a doll for little. "My dear," said Mr. Micawber, "Copperfield," for so he had been accustomed to call me of late, "has a heart to feel for the distresses of his fellow creatures. My aunt, Miss Betsy." I had already observed that I don't know how this desperate idea came into my brain, but once there, it remained there, and hardened. But there was one little trait in her behaviour which I liked to dwell on, and which gave me some faint shadow of encouragement. I could not forget how my mother had thought she felt her touch. She told me that Miss Betsy lived near Dover, but whether at Dover itself, Sandgate, or Folkestone, she could not say. One of our men, however, informing me when I first came there, not to present myself in the counting house at their usual hour to receive my stipend. For this express reason, I borrowed the half-guinea that I might not be water, and I had written a direction for it on the back of one of our notes that we